San Diego News Now.
That single unemployed mother of those California octuplets has taken a lot of heat for her decision to go ahead and have more babies after she had already given birth to 6 children. And her fertility doctor is also taking a lot of heat for carrying out her wishes. Did he violate the standard of care? Was there an ethical breach? Well, Dr. Sanjay Agarwal from UCSD's Fertility Center deals with these kinds of issues every day. Doctor, thanks very much for being with us. What happens when a woman comes into you and says, okay, I want to conceive, I want to have in vitro fertilization, and I don't care how many embryos I have, you're going to implant all of them?
Well, this is a question that does arise from time to time, and the key thing here is the counseling beforehand, because clearly 6 or 8 embryos is way too many, and so the goal is to produce fewer embryos such that you have the right number of embryos to transfer, and if there are extra embryos, to freeze the extra embryos for later use.
What's the number that you normally implant into a woman?
As few as possible. That's the answer.
Really?
Yes, but we don't want
1, 2?
Well, we don't want to create triplets or more. 1 and 2 are fine, but beyond that, it's not a success. So usually 1 or 2 in a young woman such as this. In fact, last year, in 20% of embryo transfers in young women, we transferred 1 embryo with a 90% pregnancy rate.
And when you talk about the psychological aspect, what kind of counseling or what kind of questions do you ask of a woman or a couple coming in when they want to talk about fertility treatments?
Well, I ask them about previous children. I ask them how they obtain those children, through fertility or naturally. I counsel them regarding the various options available to them, the chances of success of the various therapies, and the risks of multiple pregnancies with the various options.
Do you ever discuss the economic impact?
I try not to, because I don't think it's really my place to do that.
But for example, in the case of Nadia Suleiman, she has 6 kids. She's an unemployed single mom. She is taking government assistance, and now she says, okay, I want to have as many more as I can. There is an economic equation that goes into that.
Oh, yeah, I agree. In many ways, this is a disaster. But fortunately, it's not something that happens frequently. And I'm not sure that society gives me the right to decide who can reproduce and who can't. I don't think in this society we limit the number of children. And it's unfortunate this woman could afford IVF, but yet is on social help.
Had she presented herself to you, what would you have said to her?
Well, the key difference would be the number of embryos transferred. First of all, knowing that she had 6 children previously, I would make sure she wanted more children, because it is an undertaking and there's a responsibility with that. But having heard from her that she wants more children, the key thing then would be not to be transferring 6 embryos. I would have transferred 1 or 2, because clearly she's a good prognosis situation. She's had prior successes with IVF and she's young.
Do you think that her doctor compromised standard of care, or that there was some kind of ethical breach involved?
Yes.
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 You do?
I do. There are guidelines as to the number of embryos to transfer from the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, and for someone like this, the typical would be 1 or 2 embryos. 6, I think, is way beyond expectation.
Dr. Agarwal, thank you very much for being with us. And I want to point out, if you have any kind of questions about fertility, there is a great website that you can go to. It is www.sart.org, and this answers all questions that you could possibly have about anything having to do with fertility. It's called the what?
It's the Society for Assisted Reproductive Technologies. It's a very neutral site and has the success rates of all the centers in the country, and also the number of embryos transferred by those centers at different age groups. So I think it's very transparent.
Thank you, Doctor, for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
My
Catherine?
pleasure.